Drevo have been delivering budget mechanical keyboards for a while now, and I've been really positive about their boards because of their uniqueness, but today we check out one of their more normal or standard boards, their Drevo Tyrfing V2. Opening up the box, we have the keyboard itself, we get a user manual and a sticker, a wire keycap puller, which is a nice inclusion, a key switch puller, and then 4 extra key switches, which tells me that this is a hotswappable keyboard, which I had no idea about. In the hands, it's a relatively light keyboard for the size of it, but it's still packing some weight, and there's a little bit of flex to it, but nothing to be concerned about at all, like I'm really forcing it here. Alright, so it looks just about how you would expect a budget full-size keyboard to look like. It has an aluminium top mounting plate which has a black brush finish. So it has a floating key design as the key switches are exposed from the sides, making it look like quite a slim keyboard from the side. The rest of the enclosure is made from plastic and is as simple as you can get, just a flat black wall with a slight inclination for some angle. So with a thin alu plate and a thin plastic base, it doesn't feel particularly solid or premium. On the bottom we have a good amount of rubber feet, including additional ones for when you have the feet up, and those feet are also rubber tipped. And we have a non-removable cable, which is unfortunate, but it does look nicely secured. While it does have a super simple enclosure, it isn't particularly helped by the keycaps, which are backlit, so the legends are thick and have some weird gaps and all that, so not the cleanest, but you can't expect too much. And then being nitpicky, the top right section looks a bit unrefined to me, like the huge letters for the num, caps and scroll lock and the gaming mode. And then the lights light up blue instead of something more neutral like white. But as always, looks are subjective, so yeah, that's just how I personally feel. It does have a completely standard anti-layout, so you could replace the keycaps if you really wanted to. But with these backlit caps, you get the proper RGB lighting experience. You can play around with the lighting on board, so that's done by the FN key and all of these keys over here. So we got the brightness and speed settings on the arrow keys, and then all the effects and whatnot on the nav cluster. However, for better control, you can use the software that we can download from the Drevo website. So in the lighting section, we can see that we have a bunch of profiles that we can switch between. And it's all very self-explanatory. We can choose whatever color we want on the right. If you just want a singular color, you have to deselect the full color option, otherwise it will just be the range of colors you choose. There's all the normal effects you can expect, but I found heat map to be kind of interesting, where it turns from a blue to a red when you type. And there's no apply button, so it updates in real time, which is handy. And then we have the customize section, which again is very simple. Just choose a key and then you can assign any one of these options. And one of those options is a macro. We can create macros in the macro section. We just press add and then we can choose our delays. Then hit record and do whatever you want and then click stop. And you can play around with it after as well. So the software works perfectly fine. I think it's pretty easy to get it right since they're all pretty much the same thing from keyboard to keyboard. The keycaps are made from 1.2 to 1.3mm thick ABS plastic. They are double shot, so the legends are another piece of plastic and will never fade away. And underneath we have the Ultemu red key switches, which are a light linear switch, meaning that they have no bump or click. And of course this is also available in the other variants. The stabilizers aren't great on these, as you would have heard with the rattle. It's always one of the worst parts about mechanical keyboards, and it's not even restricted to the budget end, but you can shove some lube in there if you want. Anyway, the cool thing is that these are hot swappable, which doesn't even seem to be mentioned on the box. So using the key switch puller provided, you can take out the key switches like so. They're pretty tight and you have to pull quite hard and wiggle it around a bit, but they do come out eventually. And here we can see the SMD RGB LED, which is for each switch, and we also see the hot swap sockets in which the 2 pins go into. The unfortunate part is that these sockets are super tight, so they're mainly just for our Temu key switches, so like Cherry MX, Gateron and whatever else, most don't fit. Sometimes you may be able to squeeze it in, like I've done it with a few KL speed switches, but most of the time the pin won't go in and it will bend. And to add to that, the key switches do need to have a gap for the SMD LED, so yeah, not great compatibility. But at the very least, they are easy to replace with our Temu key switches without the need of desoldering, so that's better than normal. Taking the keyboard apart is very simple with a couple of Phillips head screws on the top plate and then release the clips. Alright, so the aluminium mounting plate is 1.5mm, which is pretty standard for budget boards. And here we have the PCB. It's very clean and all, but the main difference is that we have these sockets soldered in. So like if you really wanted to, you could desolder the sockets and install other key switches, although I don't really see the point with this type of keyboard. And finally, the bottom plastic shell is thin, but it does have a bit of ribbing for reinforcement, and the flex isn't much of an issue when it's screwed into the aluminium plate. Other little things, it has full end key rollover, so you can press as many keys simultaneously as you want. We can lock the Windows key by pressing it with the FN key, and we also have a couple of media control keys and other simple shortcuts on the function row. Okay, so overall there's not much to it. What you see is what you get. It's a simple full-size mechanical keyboard with customizable RGB backlighting. It even has the hot swappable key switches, however you will be limited to our Temu, but that's just fine in my opinion. The build isn't amazing, you can feel that it is a budget keyboard, but that's what you pay for. And yeah, I've referred to this as a budget board, but it is going towards the higher end of that category in regards to price in my opinion. You won't find all these extra features on say a more premium board at this price, but you are reaching into like the basic keyboards from a more premium brand. Since it's not as unique as their other boards, it is a harder pick for me since the competition is greater. And there's a lot of other great options out there, but if you need that numpad, this keyboard will serve you well, and they do have their TKL version if you don't need it. It's just a basic keyboard in terms of looks and build, but I also appreciate that style of approach as it does deliver what it shows.